Hello, this is Lino Tadros, and in this part 4 of our custom module, I would like to show you a little bit of a trick. It's a little bit of an advanced trick, and that's because of a very small bug in Sitefinity that you need to be aware of when it comes to choices, for instance, as far as dynamic types. Let's go ahead and get started. So we ended part 3. You were able to see the title, the first name, the last name, and the image as well for each one. Everything was fine there. Let me go ahead and change this to show you the third type that I created in the module, which is called My Choices. If you remember, we had first choice, second choice, third choice, and stuff like that. What if I would like to display that in the list as well? Let's go for it. I'm going to go backwards here once, and we will go to the content one more time. Well, I'm sorry, design, widget templates. There you go. And I'm going to open up my list template that we've worked on before right here. Okay, I'm going to actually cheat a little bit. I'm going to copy this one of the lines. I don't have to type too much. Control C and Control V on this guy. And instead of saying a last name, I'm going to say, for instance, my choice. Alrighty. And if you remember when we created the module in part 1, the name of that field was called My Choices. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and say save the changes. And if I go back to pages, this should work for both of them with different choices from the database coming in for each one of the records. Let's go ahead and run this and see it working. And there we go. My choice, we chose third choice on this record, and then on the first record for the CEO, we had second choice. So this is working just fine. So where is the bug really in Sitefinity? Let me show you. If I go back in here, and I'd like to add a third employee, okay? Let's go ahead and click on content, go to human resources, and I'm gonna say create a new employee in here. And this one will say, for instance, I don't know, janitor, already. And in the photo in here, again, it's not that important, so I'm just gonna load the same image from the dog in here, and we'll call it Lino, and we'll say Tadros right there. And then when it gets to the choices, I am not going to touch it at all. Notice that the first one will be checked automatically in the radio button because one of them in the group has to be checked, but I'm not going to touch it at all. As a matter of fact, if you touch one of them, click on second and then go back to first choice, this will work just fine. The only time this will not work if you leave it alone and as a default and you do not change it whatsoever. If I say publish, everything will work correctly, but if I go back to my view, you will notice something very weird. Let me go back in here to pages and open up the home page, and let's see what happened on the third record. The third record had Lino Tadros. My choice is completely empty. This should have said first choice because that is the one selected in there. All the other ones are working. So what exactly is happening in here? Well, the small bug is that if you don't touch the radio buttons at all, it automatically saves it as null, even though visually it shows that the first one is there. Hopefully in the next version of Sitefinity or so, this will be fixed so that the one that is showing with the radio button marked will be the one that will be selected automatically, even if I don't touch it at all. But how do you get around something like this for right now? Well, there are a couple of ways. There is the hokey way to do it, and there is the right way to do it. The hokey way is to add another element to the choices called please select a choice. So that it will remind people that you have to select one of them, because the default will be please select a choice. And that's the hokey one, okay? But it will work if you want to do it this way until they fix that issue. The other one will take a little bit more work, but it's definitely the right way to do it, at least for right now. And that is to implement an event on the iDynamic module itself for the creation of items. And then you find out if it's null, then you push it to be one of the elements automatically in the code. So we're going to go ahead and do that next to show you how to do that. All right, I'm going to bring in a documentation page in here. I think you need to make yourself comfortable with that. Let me plug it in here. So if you go to the documentation, just search Google on something called Sitefinity Event Hub, and you will notice there is something here on the side called List of Event Hub Events. All of these are the categories of events. There is over 120 of them in Sitefinity. I am interested in the one that says Dynamic Module Event, which is the one I'm working on right now. There will be a lot of different events in here. See, iDynamic Content Event, creating, created, updating, updated, deleting, and deleted. The one I'm interested in is the one with the ing. Not with the one with the ed. That means I want to actually listen in on the event before it finished creating things. So I'm going to actually implement that event and tell the system if the value of the choice is null or empty, I would like to set it to the first element, for instance, inside of there. So I would like to cheat, really take this into the clipboard right there, because I would like to go ahead and get Sitefinity to allow me to hook up or subscribe to that event, listen in on it, and then whenever it happens, I will check for the null myself. So let's go ahead and get started in Visual Studio. Here we are in Visual Studio. I'm going to open up my global.asax file. And again, I'm going to go right inside of my Bootstrap or Bootstrapped. And it doesn't matter what I was doing. This is for other videos. But for this one, I would say Event Hub, like that, dot. And Event Hub, by the way, it's available in a namespace called Telerik Sitefinity Services. You have to have that in the using clauses at the top. And then we will go ahead and say subscribe. There you go. And the subscribe will take actually a specific generic in here. And the generic that I'm interested in is the one that I pasted from the documentation. Let me bring it in. It's called iDynamic Content Creating Event. That also needs to bring in a namespace called Telerik Sitefinity Dynamic Modules.events. That has to be added for you to be able to work with it. Other than that, we will do like any other event. We'll create something like an E or an EVT or something. And we'll say it goes into, and then I'm going to create a function. We'll call it, for instance, content. You can call it anything you want, creating. All right, content creating, and then I will be passing the event argument directly in here. Now let's go ahead and implement this content creating. We'll click on it. We'll go say generate the method for this guy. And now this is the fun part, is that to be able to listen in on that event whenever it happens, I would like to check on the type, which is alerts.alert, and being able to check on one of the properties coming in from there. And if it's null, I'll go ahead and set it up, maybe let's say to the first element, which will be the first choice. So I never get null in the database at all. So in reality, at this point, I need to write some code in here, folks, to resolve the human resources.employee string into a real type in .NET itself to be able to get to it. And this could be something that you have never done before. Is there something that Sitefinity can help me with that code? So let me leave this alone for right now. Let's go back to Sitefinity for a second. Alrighty, and let's go ahead and click on Administration Module Builder, and I'll show you something extremely neat actually in Sitefinity. The way they implemented the custom modules, if you click on Human Resources, there is a feature a lot of people miss, and I would love for you to actually pay attention to it all the way at the top, at the bottom, and he says Code Reference for Human Resources. This is not just pure sample documentation. This is real documentation for your own module and type. That means it knows about human resources and it knows about the employee types. If I click on this guy, you will get it in C# and in Visual Basic as well. See, you can get to choose which language you want to see this in, and the content type is employee. So for instance, if I would like to get a collection, click on Get Collection of Employees. The code in VB and in C# will be written for you, so you don't have to really figure this out. See, retrieve collection of employees. You will create a provider name and a transaction name, but the three lines happening right after that are the most important one, which you will get the manager of your dynamic module manager, and then you will resolve the type coming in from a string. Ours is called Telerik Sitefinity Dynamic Types.model.humanresources.employee. Once you resolve that string into a real type, then I can actually use my collection variable in here to go get all the data items and being able to return the entire collection. So this could be very, very useful. Notice it's written for my stuff, first name, last name, my choices, and the photo in here. All the stuff is available for me in here. So it's really awesome. And it will make it very easy for you to actually write code against your own custom module. You don't have to realize really how to create a new employee or delete or get a collection or get one by ID. All the code is written for you in here as well. All right, let's go ahead and fix the bug then. In here in the implementation of the creating content, the function I just created myself for the subscription of the event, I'm going to paste a few lines in here. I'm going to explain it. First of all, I'm going to create a type. And that type will have the full name of the item got type that will send to me inside of the event argument in here. I'm going to check if that event is of Telerik Sitefinity Dynamic Types Model Human Resources.employee. And you have to, of course, spell it 100% correct to be able to resolve the type correctly. And if it's equal to that type, then I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, let's create a variable, and I'm going to do an extension method, because you cannot say item.myChoices in the code, okay? Because whoever wrote Sitefinity didn't know you're going to create something called my choices, so they created it as an extension method. So you'll have to use get value and set value to work with any field that did not exist before Sitefinity was written. Sounds good? So I'm going to say .item, and then instead of saying .my choices, we'll say get value of choice option of the name of the field. And it has to be spelled correctly as well. The name of the field is my choices. I'm going to check it's null. And in my case, because of the bug, this will be null. So if I continue without running this code, it will just go ahead and be null in the database, and I will never see anything in my view. But I'm going to say if it is null, I would like to set its value for the field called my choices to 1. Notice I did not pass in here in the second one first choice, second choice, or third choice, because this is the text value. What I want is the predefined value in the database itself. So it'd be 1, 2, or 3 for my 3 choices. So be careful. This is another mistake people make, is to pass the text value. And the text value is not going to work. It has to be the pre-selected value itself in the database. So that's 1 for first value, 2 for second value, second choice, and 3 will be for the third choice in the radio button. Make sense? All right, so let's go ahead and save this guy. And I'm going to compile it. I have to compile it, unfortunately, because we made some changes in here to the global.asx. And we'll go ahead and run it. And I'll come back as soon as it finished the gears of compiling Sitefinity to show you how it will work. All right, it finished compiling. Let's go back to content again. And I'm going to go to human resources. And let's go ahead this time and create a brand new record for employees. So we have already 3 of them. There we go. And I'm going to say create an employee. And this one will say blah, blah, blah. It's fine with me. And we'll use the same dog again. It's fine. There you go. And I don't care about the first name and last name for right now. But this time I'm not going to touch it again. We'll leave it alone, which is supposed to be null at this point. But because of my implementation, once I say publish, publish in here will automatically fire up the event. The iDynamic content creating, not created, creating event will fire, and my code will fire. So when I say publish, you will notice that the database will work correctly. And you can choose to actually set it to whatever you want. I just chose the first one as the default, but again, you can change that number from 1 to 2 to 3 in the code to whatever you would like. If I go backwards in here, and if I go back to pages, I am supposed to see the correct values, even though I didn't touch it, so we will not have that bug anymore. Let's go ahead and see if it will look right for the new record. And there it is. See, my choice is first choice. The one for the janitor we did earlier, it still has the bug because that was before I actually ran that code, but the first choice will work correctly this time. Hopefully this was useful to you to see how you can get around some things sometimes. And I hope to see you again soon in another video at Lino TV. Thank you.